Hi, welcome to Unnecessary Roughness. I always try to repeat the way Brandon says hi. It never sounds right. So, hello.
Is hi.
Hi. It's always way more annoying when I do it. Hi, welcome to Unnecessary Roughness, Barstool Sports College Football Podcast. It is me, it is Ev, it is Liam. I know you last week when I was not there because it was the NFL travel schedule and everybody's schedules were messing it up. You guys said it's for the boys. So I don't really know what this one is with just me and the two of you. Like two men and a
The
lady.
fellas in the fillet.
Oh my God.
What'd you say? The fillet?
That's a word.
Yeah. No, I've always just kind of said fellas and fillets, and I'm trying to get it to catch on. So maybe this will.
Well, here it is. Fellas and the fillets. We're going to do kind of like a quick hitter episode. And I have something special for everybody that's listening. And I'm very excited. It's going to be a Liam Blutman episode. Okay. Because like we were talking about before we started recording, Ev, like he didn't get his shots up over the weekend. He wasn't with us at Cosm. You know, he had to stay back and do actual work for him because he needs to be left alone. And we got to let him get his shots up.
Nah, Blutman's gonna cook the social king was doing his thing on Saturday, but now it's time for Blutman to stir the pot a little bit.
Yeah,
I'm genuinely curious a lot of his thoughts on some of the big games. So
for sure. So before we get into it, obviously this episode is presented as always by High Noon. We were at Cosm Ev over the weekend. I was sipping on a lot of High Noons. They had the pineapple just ice cold right there. I know you were down horrendously bad. We had the live episode. I probably should have given you a High Noon during that episode. That's really what you needed. But no matter what, no matter you're sad, you're happy, you're at Cosm, you're at a tailgate, you're at the game, High Noon is the way to go.
High Noon made it a little bit better. I appreciate Katie brought me a couple High Noons. I thank her greatly for that. It softened the blow of the loss a little bit. High Noon, they're there to celebrate when the thing about High Noon, it's always there for you. It's there for you when you win. It's there for you when you lose. Shout out High Noon.
HighNoonSpirits.com. Find the pack near you, and the In Zone pack is the fall exclusive. So go get that. Okay, so obviously, first of all, we want to say thank you again to everybody who was at the Cosm Game Watch. Obviously, we did the podcast after Cosm closed, so the people that did stick around for that, you're our best friends. It was the whole place was completely shut down, and we still had a little bit of a crowd watching. So thank you to that. But Blutman, I'm just going to throw this up there. Ohio State, Oregon. I know that we were losing our minds there watching Ev down bad. I need to know where your brain was during that, because I was told that nobody on this podcast, because I was absent on Thursday, nobody thought Oregon had a chance to win that game, and that you were kind of leading the pack, because obviously Ev's always going to. You were leading the pack on that.
Yeah. I mean, first and foremost, I think all of us expected to say a little bit more from Ohio State's defense is a massive understatement. We expected a lot more from them in all three levels. I guess we'll get into that a little later. But yeah, I thought Ohio State would go in there and take care of it, which is the complete 180 from what I thought before the season, when I had Oregon beating them here and then Ohio State getting revenge in the Big Ten Championship. Whatever. On this day, this week, thought Ohio State had the perfect opportunity to go in there. Credit to Oregon, of course. I want to touch on the Dylan Gabriel thing. Play a phenomenal first half football, and folks were chirping me. Why? I don't understand why I'm getting chirped for a Dylan Gabriel. So I gotta be quite honest. It doesn't make sense to me. If I was out here complaining about him and his play all season because he couldn't hit a deep ball and because he was so inconsistent with that, and then he went out there on Saturday and finally did, then all credit to him. Chirping me doesn't make sense. They finally figured out what he was doing wrong and correct himself and got go. And then the second half was Dylan Gabriel all season anyway. It was check down merchant, whatever. I don't care. Denzel Burke had maybe the worst performance of a
You're
Buckeye.
not upset about it at all.
Denzel Burke. I don't want to overuse this one, but guys were running on turf, grass, whatever, and he was running in maple syrup, and it is just a joke. It was pathetic, and it's not the first time that Denzel Burke has been a massive disappointment. It's like the second or third time that he's had a big opportunity and big game to solidify some NFL money, and he's fumbled the bag entirely. He couldn't dissect the route to save his life. I thought he was the worst player on the field, and it wasn't even close. Ohio State's inability to create pressure with the pass rush was a massive disappointment as well. I don't know. I think Ohio State played a very mediocre game and they lost by 1 point. I think Oregon played a very strong game and they win by a point. And they had some mistakes, yeah. And again, more Oregon fans were chirping me like, "Oh, we didn't play near a perfect game, blah blah. We missed this extra point. We blah blah blah." I'm talking about fundamentally. I'm talking about the game plan. I'm talking about offense, defense. I ain't talking about special teams. Your special teams are fine, by the way. How about the little high IQ play to kick it off the fella, the up man, and go and recover that? Like, more teams need to do that. And it's so disappointing when teams are kicking off from that spot and aren't doing that. Is what it is. But yeah, I don't know. Ryan Day, well, he has the chocolate chip cookies recipe, and he's doing it wrong every single time, and he won't correct what's wrong. Every single big game with them is the same thing. It's the same thing. They lose the same way. They go in the same way. They lose the same way. They come out a bit flat. They come out a bit unprepared. They end up being softer than they are, and it's like he is. I don't think he has it. I don't think Ryan Day has it, and he just keeps incorrectly making the chocolate chip cookie recipe.
Ev, what do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, he's right about Day. I mean, now that I've had like a few days to digest it, I want to make this statement very clear. If Ohio State doesn't win the Big Ten, I will be avidly and publicly calling for Ryan Day's head. I'll be calling for him to be fired. And I'd also like a record if he loses the Big Ten, or we don't win it. I'll be wanting Mike Vrabel to take over as a head coach of Ohio State football team. If not him, I'd like Brian Hartline. Urban Meyer's not coming back. But what he said is right. It's you can't. I said a little bit in the post game show, kind of my ending piece, like my shit list. You can't keep losing the same way. I've just made so many excuses for this guy. I've made excuses for years. They keep losing these big games really close. They feel like they're games they could have won if ball bounced this way, if they made a better decision this way, a better play this way. And when it keeps happening over and over and over again, you no longer can say it's a fluke or it's like, oh, like this just went wrong. There's something fundamentally wrong with what Ryan Day's doing, whether it's preparation, whether it's just in-game management. There's a lot of things. And even I'll give Liam credit. I gave him shit before the season because he said the Dan Lanning thing, and I kind of was like, "What has Dan Lanning done?" He coached circles around Ryan Day in that game. I mean, up until even the ending thing, the 12 man on the field, I give him credit. I tip my cap. That's genius. That's like a genius loophole he found that basically said, "Hey, let's put 12 men on the field. There's 10 seconds left. Let's make sure that we're going to burn clock. We're going to make sure they don't get a big play because we have 12 guys in the field. We're going to take the penalty, but we're going to burn." In this case 4 seconds, which was enough to basically make it. You only have one play. In our case, it ended up being one play because Will Howard just shit down his leg.
I mean, yeah, he just absolutely fucked that up.
I took a mental lapse, and I've been trying to juggle in my head with specifically that last play with Will Howard of how much of it is on him, how much of it is on Day, and just like the offensive coaching staff to be like, hey, like this ball has to be out in a second, and if it's not, you have about 2-3 seconds to run forward, get down, call the timeout. He sat in the pocket for like a full 3-4 seconds, then decides to run. He ran too long. Even if he slides on time, super long field goal. They probably have to really make a decision whether they're going to kick a field goal or they're going to throw a Hail Mary, basically. I don't. It just sickens me to my core because I know they're more talented, and he said it. He said it right. Denzel Burke was atrocious. I mean,
so bad.
And it was like, and he has weirdly, it's crazy. This is his 4th year as a starter for Ohio State, and he's weirdly like he's had some unbelievable seasons, and really like overall he's been great in his career. But he has had like a couple games like this where you're just like, what happened to you? What happened in this game that you're this lockdown corner, and then all of a sudden you're just getting toasted down the field. I mean,
he crumbles under pressure. He crumbles.
And I think we have another corner on the roster, Jermaine Matthews, who's really, really good, really talented. And I think would be starting on pretty much almost any other team in college football. We're just so loaded in the secondary that he hasn't gotten the field much. And I think it's about time we start trying to maybe give him some more playing time because we just can't have that happen again. I don't care that he's been around 4 years. I don't care that he could have left after last year and maybe been a late first, probably at least like a second round pick. Just a gross loss. I'm not making any excuses for it. I'm not going to make excuses for Ryan Day anymore. It's as simple as get it figured out. avenge the loss in the Big Ten championship game. You got to get there first. We got to beat Penn State first on the road. That's not going to be easy again. I'm sure we'll talk about that game in a second more too.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm not making any more excuses for him. It is as simple as results, get it done, or I'm out on you. I'm done. I don't care if your record's 105. Like, I don't care what it is. Like, if you lose every big game, you're the coach of Ohio State to win these big games. I don't care that you never lose to like the middle road Big Ten teams. You shouldn't lose to those teams.
Yeah, no, and I know we talked about this on Saturday night. And like, obviously, as somebody who, I mean, I went into this season thinking Oregon was going to be the Big Ten champion. I had a lot more, hope for Dillon Gabriel going into this season. And Liam, you're right. Like, I know people are probably chirping you a lot, but we said this on Saturday. Like, it's not like Dillon Gabriel was playing incredibly well and Oregon was looking like they were firing at all cylinders until this weekend. The issue is for Ohio State, it was a perfect storm because Oregon's offense looked really good and Dillon Gabriel looked really good. And Ohio State's defense got a little bit, I don't want to say exposed because like, it's not like it was just like the most horrendous thing of all time. The game obviously came down to the last play, but what we saw was Dan Lanning and Dillon Gabriel finally looking on the biggest stage of the season thus far the way they were supposed to. And Dan Lanning, like you mentioned the 12 guys on the field, I still can't, like you think about that onside kick where he just took that risk and he was like, fuck it. Like, I'm just going to have this guy kick it as hard as he possibly can. And if it goes past him, whatever, it's just a kick. But the fact that like he was thinking of those innovative things and Ryan Day was still being Ryan Day, that to me speaks more about how Oregon has evolved and Ohio State hasn't.
Yeah. Dan Lanning coached. Like he was ahead like 19 laps on Ryan Day all game. And I thought after the first two drives, I thought, hey man, Chip Kelly's gonna have that offense humming all night. This is gonna be tough for Oregon's defense. And credit to Oregon's defense, they stepped up. They got that early stop with the fumble, and that really changed things. There's two more things that I kind of want to touch on with this game. One of them being Will Howard. I have to bring up Will Howard because, and I don't want to hear the Kyle McCord stuff. I don't want to hear that. I don't care if he's here. It wasn't a good fit for him. It wasn't a good fit for Ohio State. They parted ways. He's blossoming without them. Who cares? Kyle McCord does not need to be here. Will Howard's the guy that Ryan Day identified. He's now, truthfully, is 0 for 2 identifying his quarterbacks. He is 0 for 2. The quarterback position at Ohio State used to kind of mean something. You used to see quarterbacks at Ohio State and know, hey, they're league bound and they're going to be good and they're going to be high draft picks in the NFL and be, they had a great stretch outside like JT Barrett, whatever. Will Howard's there. Will Howard is the quarterback of Ohio State. You do not have the capacity to goof as the quarterback of Ohio State. And he goofs way too often. And I understand. He made some great throws on Saturday night. Credit where credit is due. But it ain't like they're one-of-one throws that he's the only guy in the country that could be making those throws. Those are throws that most quarterbacks in the country should be able to make. Any quarterback at Ohio State should be making those throws. Throwing to Jeremiah Smith and Emeka Egbuka. Like, he is so mediocre. He is so replaceable. And this is the guy that they that they believed in to take them to a national championship. I don't agree with it. Nonetheless, they still can win the national championship even with them. But like, that's just a year. That's just this season. Like, that's just kind of luck of the draw, whatever is what it is. Will Howard goofed 3 or 4 times on Saturday night. He goofed with the drop snap on a 3rd and 4, was it? I mean, you catch the ball, brother. You've been in college football for how many years? Figure it out, bud. He goofed on the final play of the game. 100%. That is on him and only him because any coaching staff in the country, whether it's Ohio State or FAU or Merrimack, knows, hey, there's 6 seconds here and we need to get in the field goal range. You're looking on a quick out route to the sideline. If it ain't there, you're throwing it away, and we're playing for a Hail Mary. We're not playing for a 56-yard field goal or whatever. Internal clock, get that ball out of your hands ASAP. That's on him. He played that like there's 18 seconds left. He played it like there's 4 minutes and 50 seconds left. He played it like an absolute incompetent, brain-dead idiot quarterback, and that's on him and only him. And the other issue with this goof, the first play of the final drive of the game, he is laid down. He just fell down straight up. It's a ball you throw away. You save about 20, 25 seconds. You save about 9 yards of field position. I thought he played a very mediocre game. I thought he's been very mediocre in replacement level all season. I tweeted out in all caps that he stinks after a game because the last play that we saw verified that for me. I am so out on him, and I think it is a shame that Ohio State has two of the premier receivers in the country, arguably the best in true freshman Jeremiah Smith, and they don't just find ways to get 150 and 125 for both of them every game, nearing double digit catches, 3-4 touchdowns. Like, it could be so easy for them.
Yeah, I definitely don't like, I mean, I'm happy that Liam wasn't there on Saturday night. I was about to say, Ev, like I was trying to like think like Liam, I think would have made it worse for you on Saturday night had we gone through all of this. But I mean, it's what he's saying is true. That last play, and we need to move on to other games too, but like that last play had to be the most frustrating thing because it was frustrating as just like a college football fan to watch that, for an Ohio State fan to watch, because like you mentioned, like they were going to have to make a decision, try to kick a really long field goal or throw a Hail Mary or something. But the fact that it ended with this guy who was supposed to come in, and whether it's Kyle McCord's issue or not, and that's how that game ended, has to be the most fucking infuriating thing in the world, especially, 3-4 days past or however many days it is, because you just know that that was a gigantic mistake. Like there's just nothing else to say about it.
Yeah, listen, overall, Liam's generally right. I've struggled with it a little bit just because it's like, I'm not, this is going to sound like I'm making excuses. I'm just trying to like decipher his gameplay in this game specifically. It's like outside of the three goofs, he played well, but you can't have three goofs. Like you can't have three goofs in a game like this, and especially two of them on the game-winning drive. Like you just can't do it. And the fumbled snap was just like disgusting, inexcusable that they're driving to potentially score again. Because I think we're forgetting now, they come out of the half, they go stop touchdown.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, okay, like we're cooking now. I'm like, we're going to take over the second half. They've been kind of a second half team all year. Like even Iowa game, they're up 7-0. They come out, smash them in the second half. Kind of something similar Michigan State game. They come out, smash them in the second half. So they got to stop immediately. And Knowles, we were, the thing we haven't brought up on this episode, I brought up on the last one. The pass rush from Ohio State was non-existent. It was almost like they weren't even there. And you have multiple top 3-round picks. I'd say potentially three. I'd say three guaranteed top 3-round picks on that defensive line, maybe more, of younger guys that are coming in and getting more playing time, like Kenyatta Jackson, Caden Curry. Maybe they'll evolve as years go on, they get more playing time. But to have guys like that on your defense and just get zero pass rush, like none. And Knowles is the guy, he doesn't bring pressure much. That's not his style. He likes to have guys rush with 4, and we've had success with it before this game. And then he brings some pressure to start that first couple drives on defense, and they get home a little bit. Like they actually put some pressure on Gabriel. They get a stop or two, and then they kind of go away from it, and then we can't make stops when we need it. The tackling was really piss poor too. That was a big issue. Yeah. Obviously, we've talked about the secondary was bad. Denzel Burke, we've already touched on that enough. But yeah, and also just real quick to touch on the McCord thing, and I hate doing this because I really like McCord. I've met his dad. His dad's like a really good guy. He went to all the games, was on a couple plane rides home with them. Always was very good to me because I was very like positive about McCord. I don't want to do this. He threw a couple picks. They lost to Stanford at home. Like let's not like let's have some like let's not just say Ohio State loses one game and all of a sudden we're like, oh, like you shouldn't have ran him out of town. Like you should he did the same thing in the Michigan game. He shit his pants, threw a pick like inside our own 20. Michigan scores right away. He throws a pick on the final drive to win the game. So let's not pretend like the takes preseason of it was a lateral move are coming more to fruition as the season goes on. Howard is probably a better fit just because he's more mobile, and I think that fits our offense a little bit more. But they're probably like McCord honestly probably has more like NFL potential just because he probably has a better like natural arm and just more arm strength.
It was an excellent move for McCord. Like he's not excelling near this level if he's playing Ohio State this year, and that's just a fact. What Syracuse has been able to do with him and to just really benefit to his strengths, their offensive scheme and everything's fantastic. He's getting the ball out so quickly, and he's made so many strides in his game. The relationship wasn't working for either side, and they cut ties. Both of them agreed to do it, and one side benefited from it a whole lot more, and that's the McCord camp, and credit to him. One more thing I wanted to touch on just real quickly. I know he only ran the ball like 3 or 4 times, whatever. you guys had zero respect for Dylan Gabriel's legs and ability to move. Zero respect. He burned you once or twice with them.
You know what it was though? I think they did it like the game plan wise. I think they did. I think their game plan was poor, but I think they did. I think they didn't want to rush, like send more guys because of that. So I think the idea of like wanting to respect his ability to run was there, but they executed it so poorly.
Yeah.
That and like I said, did you agree? They tackled so poorly.
Yeah, I mean, it felt like it never when they threw the ball and completed the pass, it felt like there was never first contact tackles.
Not even it felt like and just Gabriel was just like untouched. I mean, if you just let him sit back there, like they have Stewart, they have Tez Johnson, like they have very talented, fast receivers that are going to get open if they get time.
What a game for
they had it. They had all day.
Good for Evan Stewart.
Well, and it's funny you were mentioning that. Like I had some friends because we were in Dallas. I had some friends there that Ev met, and one of my friend's boyfriends was gigantic Aggie, and he just every time Evan Stewart would make like a play, he'd like look at me, and I'm like, good for him. Like this was a phenomenal move for Evan Stewart to go play with Dylan Gabriel in this Dan Lanning offense, and that was the game that we've been kind of waiting for to see him in an Oregon uniform because he is that talented. But just to move on from this game, Ev, before like. I know that Saturday night it was like DEFCON as high as you can possibly go. How are you feeling now? I mean, obviously the 12-team playoff helps a lot, but where's the panic level?
It's bad. It's bad in the sense of like, listen, this team is probably going to make the play. Like things would have to go horrifically to not make the playoff. But my goal with this team is our goal is not to make the playoff. It's to win the national championship,
right?
To win the Big Ten, to win the national title. And like, I was so convinced, almost to the point I was arrogant. I would admit that I thought this defense was going to roll in there, hold this team to 20 or less. I said on the show, I was like, I don't see them scoring 20 or more points. I said that out of my mouth. One of the dumbest things I've ever said. And I shouldn't have said that because the personnel is like the same. I just really thought that this senior class with with Caleb Downs, with some of the added guys they brought in, that they were truly an elite defense, and they showed me that they're not. They're still really good. Listen, they're still one of the best defenses in the country, but that was a just abysmal performance. Just like I can't say enough how bad it was. So I'm just very nervous. I mean, listen, if they went out, they go avenge this loss in Indy and win the Big Ten, I'll be like all the way back in. But they got to show me that, because to have your first like huge test like that with a dynamic offense and have what happened. My excitement level has pumped the brakes like quite a bit. My confidence is significantly hindered after seeing that. I don't know how it's going to be.
So obviously last week, and Brandon had been saying that it was like Texas, Ohio State, then everybody else. So obviously Oregon has taken that, and we're going to talk about the Texas game. But before we do, game time. And Ev, you and I will be back out on the road this weekend. We are going to be going to Indiana. We're going to Bloomington for Nebraska at Indiana. We're going to be right up against the stadium. It's going to be phenomenal. We know that Indiana is flying very high. Nebraska, even with the loss to Illinois, is feeling good. And if you are going to be there or anywhere in the country, or you want to go to a concert, MLB playoffs are popping right now, especially in New York. Game Time is the app to do it. And we love it because they have a brand new Game Time Picks feature, which makes it easier. It basically filters out all the fluff. So you don't have to go through thousands and thousands of tickets to find great seats. You can just say exactly what you need, and you can find those incredible deals. I'd assume, Ev, I know you guys are streaming for the Yankees, and then the Mets guys are streaming, and all streaming. But eventually there's going to be at some point that you're going to be like, I want to go to the game. And obviously you would check Game Time. You probably aren't going to be allowed to go, but if you could, Game Time would send you.
Of course. I mean, I try to go any Game Time stuff I can. I went to so many UFC fights with Game Time. I said I saw Andrew Schultz in Atlantic City, been to baseball games, basketball, a lot of college basketball. Game Time is just the best. I mean, best prices, best deals, super easy to use. You can get it right before kick, right before first fight, right before first joke, whatever you want to call it. Game Time is there for you.
All right, Liam. So a lot of other games. Obviously, Texas destroys Oklahoma. Ole Miss completely shits the bed to lose LSU. Penn State comes back from USC. What game do you want to talk about next? Again, the Liam Blutman brain. I need to know.
Liam Blutman brain.
The Liam Blutman brain. Where are we going?
Liam Blutman brain goes in order of the days, and all I could think of is Friday night and the the news that comes out after Cam Rising's season is over, And all I could think about, I feel bad, but that man does not have it anymore. And
No.
please do not come back for an 8th year of football.
Please.
Right? Yeah, he's eligible to do it. He's eligible to do it. He's out for a season. Please prioritize your health. Get the headset on and start a career in coaching or real estate or something. Do not play more football. That was a brutal watch. Kenny Dillingham and ASU 5-1. Love to see that. Yeah, Saturday Texas Oklahoma I think is kind of exactly as planned. More so focusing on Oklahoma. Man, y'all ran Jackson Arnold out for this. That's tough. The offensive line still ain't good, but you decided to cater your entire offense. You switch things up. It's a new scheme to Michael Hawkins. And Michael Hawkins, true freshman and all, he's fine. He's fine if that. And he doesn't even run this offense well. So Oklahoma, a mess. I'd talk about Penn State, USC, but I've talked about Lincoln Riley every week, even when he wins and then when he loses. And hey, same old story with that team once again. Who would have thunk it, Ev? Who would have thought?
I knew you would be proud of that. I mean, I guess it's like an anti-proud
game, losing a game that they absolutely should have won.
And
also they're in a bit. Tyler Warren is a phenomenal football player, but having just zero answer to stop him. Like they had one guy that if you stop this guy, you win this game, and they just could not to save their lives. Just gross.
And would you believe it? More clock management issues from Lincoln Riley.
Man.
Please go to the NFL and be an OC and get out of here. I don't want to see him again.
Liam, I said that on Saturday night. I said if Liam was here, he would be down a little bit bad about his Oregon and Ohio State takes, but he would be dancing on Lincoln Riley's grave right now.
Yeah, but it's like such a win-lose because I still picked them to make the playoff. I still picked Miller Moss to win the Heisman. My preseason prediction stuff is so bad.
It happens. It happens to the best.
It's holy moly, oofta, it's bad.
Indiana though.
Indiana, you've got Indiana.
Yeah, 12 Indiana we might be talking about. LSU Ole Miss, I did think it was going to be a high-scoring game. I thought both front sevens generated really good pressure. Garrett Nussmeier played one heck of a game. I think he was even dealing with the flu. There was a funky interception, too, that happened. But I thought he played great. Thought Jackson Dart was miserable after the game. He was down horrendously bad. And I just think that it's an offense that is capable of so much more. Seems to have nothing in the receiving game aside from Trey Harris. Seems to consistently just fail and never come close to the expectations that are set. And Lane Kiffin again I love Lane Kiffin. I don't think he's focused on this job right now, and that is not healthy at all. Bad.
It's
really bad.
It's a very bizarre thing. I mean, obviously going from looking from an Ole Miss Twitter standpoint, and he's done this now a couple times where he puts photos of Gators on his Instagram story, and Twitter loses its mind over it. And it's always the day of these games. And listen, I have no idea what the thought process is on that. But if you're an Ole Miss fan, and we talked about this when they lost to Kentucky, those were not the games that you expected to lose. LSU and Baton Rouge is always going to be tough, no matter what. But the fact that they lost to Kentucky and he was kind of doing some of those little antics, and then they get right, and then they turn around and they lose a game they absolutely should have won. That was just not, LSU beat them at their own game. Lane just did not, I don't know what was going on. And for all those antics, it's just bizarre because it's what's going on? There's a lot of players that aren't playing that they think should be playing. Jackson Dart doesn't look great. The offensive line doesn't look great. And then Lane's doing all this outside stuff. It just doesn't seem like this is the exact team that we saw going into the season.
No, and the fake injury stuff doesn't stop. I know he's trying to overdo the loophole and everything, but at some point, throw it aside and just look yourself in the mirror and have some sort of dignity, because the fake injury stuff is the most pathetic thing that you could do in the sport right now. Nobody likes it. It's an absolute joke. And LSU was kind of dead in the wire in that game, but it always felt like they were going to tie it. It always felt like they were going to end up winning that game when it went to overtime. So is what it is. Clemson, I am, again, very impressed with watching what they've been able to do bouncing back from the Georgia loss. I don't care that it's at Wake Forest. I don't care that they've played some, not great teams lately. It doesn't matter. If you just eye test, watch what Clemson's doing offensively. There's so much substance there. They're clicking, they're firing on all cylinders, and they have one of the best defensive units in the country to back it up. So Clemson's dangerous. I think that's the top dog in the ACC right now. Iowa State was in a really tricky spot and had one heck of a win. Loved that for the Cyclones. Ev touched on this one on Saturday night. BYU is so good. I don't understand why people have to say every week that this is where BYU is going to trip up. This was a tough spot. This is a day game in Provo. We highlighted it on Thursday as, hey, you got to go in there and take care of business. You can't let up here. You got to fully focus on everything. And they brought an A- game. And Jake Retzlaff was so good on Yom Kippur. Shout out. One of 3 Jewish students at BYU. Shout out. BYU is good. I hope they go to the playoff. Boise State, Hawaii. Also, dude, BYU, Iowa State for the Big 12 championship would be
oh my God,
hilarious.
It would be so funny. And then, I mean, obviously, we were done long before the Kansas State Colorado game ended. That game, the ending was crazy. But we going into the season, we talked about the Big 12. We were from a national standpoint, they may not be the Big 10 or the SEC, and they might not have the national caliber talent this year. But in the conference, it's a circus in the best type of way. Who is the best team in the Big 12 right now?
It's one of them.
BYU.
Yeah. That the Big 12 has been the conference I've been the most right about. I feel like these are the only good takes I've had, is that I was high in Iowa State coming in the year, and I jumped on the BYU bandwagon very early. Basically, they beat SMU, and I was on the train.
Yeah,
I bet on that game, and Liam's right. I think there's a very good chance we see them face off in the Big 12 championship game.
Their defense is just it's not I wouldn't say it's elite. It's just so good, and they're so stout. And they don't really give you anything. There's no margin for error. They're so impressive up and down. They're greatly coached. They might be a top 5 favorite team to watch this year for me.
And they're just the two, and both of them, their teams. You said a little bit with BYU. I feel like both teams every week it's this is the week they're going to lose. This is the trap spot. This one, Arizona comes off a big beats up on Utah, comes to town. Oh, it's not a night game in Provo, it's a day game. And they fucking smash them. They don't just win; they beat the brakes off them. That's what really, really good teams do, and that's why I believe in this team so much.
Yeah, the Kayce State Colorado game was one of the best watches on Saturday too. That was the Colorado scripts never fail to amaze. Really good football game both ways. I thought, again, even though they lost, Colorado impressed. I'm not that big on K-State, whatever. Avery Johnson played a really good game too, though. Credit to him. And both teams, I think, one team gets a loss. They both played so well, though. It's hard to feel bad about what Colorado put out there. Morale victories don't exist, but
they don't, especially when it comes to somebody that's so polarizing as Dion. But for this team, absolutely, because especially the way they played early in the season. And it's going to be interesting. I know, you guys are very high on Ashton Jeanty, which why wouldn't you be? Ashton Jeanty is unbelievable, and he's, breaking Barry Sanders records and whatever. But what people who have been high on Travis Hunter as the Heisman winner, like me, saw on Saturday night is him being able to stay healthy is going to be extremely, extremely difficult. And him coming out of that game and them dealing with some other injuries, that is what's not sustainable probably for Colorado moving forward. If it is, then they're going to be fine. That was a moment where you're holy shit, obviously it's October. This guy has played 120, 130 snaps every single week. He's going to eventually get banged up. But again, you lose the game, you don't want to lose. But Colorado still played a hell of a game, having to deal with everything they had to deal with. And credit to Kansas State for capitalizing on that.
Yeah, in Colorado, the one thing I think they look much better than I anticipated. And keep in mind, they have 2 losses. One was to Nebraska. So right now they only have 1 conference loss. So they're still in the mix for the Big 12. They're not dead in the Big 12 at all.
Yeah, it's wild. Before we move on, let's talk about DraftKings. Obviously, DraftKings, the official sports betting partner of Barstool Sports. And you've been listening to this, you've been listening to anything on Barstool. You know that right now, if you have not bet with us on DraftKings, on the Barstool groups or anything like that, you can. If you just place $5 on anything you want, you get instantly $200 in bonus bets. So again, that's just $5 on anything. Use code ROUGH, ROUGH, for new customers, $20 in bonus bets when you bet just $5. And we also have the little like I said, the Barstool betting group. You can go follow all your favorite Barstool personalities. You can fade them, you can follow them, you can tail them, you can do whatever. And I'm assuming, Ev, that there's a lot of baseball bets going on right now. I know this is a college football podcast, but I can assume the MLB playoff bets are flying on your end.
Oh yeah, I've been just riding the Yankees and Mets.
Yeah.
I mean, the Mets have just been on fire, plus money almost the whole way. And the Yankees are chalk. They're laying minus 170. They easy peasy. Guardians, bing bang boom.
Bing bang boom, and then you have to watch Ohio State eat a bunch of peeps. Go to DraftKings, download the app, use code RUFF. The crown is yours. All right. So, Liam, is there anything else you want to touch on before we get to the who's up, who's down? There is more.
Yeah, I made a cardinal sin. My cover your eyes game of the week. I had 3 of them. One of them was Mizzou UMass. I watched the first 3 quarters of the game.
Only you.
More specifically, the first half. I thought Mizzou wins this game 45-3, and like, yeah, they're playing at UMass, hilarious social and everything. UMass moved the ball on them so effectively in the first half and then just squandered every opportunity in the red zone. That Missouri defense, gross. UMass moved the ball on them effectively, and like that has to be such another red flag for Mizzou. Again, they win by 42 points, and it wasn't even impressive. And my other one was KJ Jefferson is playing. He didn't even play. He didn't even play. He got benched. Yeah. And the product that he got benched for is so abysmal. How, like, that's such an indictment on him. He stinks.
He does. He stinks. And I mean, correct me if I'm wrong. I mean, he wasn't like, phenomenal at Arkansas, but he wasn't this bad at Arkansas. And I know that's probably an indictment more about like talent around him too. Like that KJ Jefferson wasn't god awful at Arkansas. Was he?
He had moments. He definitely had moments.
But like they weren't. I mean, he didn't look like, to me right now. Like you roll KJ Jefferson out in a UCF jersey, like it's going to be awful. He had his moments at Arkansas, no doubt, but he also had some moments where he could do some things. And obviously, you transfer out for a reason. But I feel like he's gotten astronomically worse since he left Arkansas.
I feel like he got a little bigger and a little slower, but he wasn't. He was always big and he was always slow. Like I don't think anything really changed there. I've never liked watching him.
Oh well, no. I mean, I haven't either. I also just don't like Arkansas. But I do. To get benched that way and like to see just how. I mean, it is cover your eyes every single time they play. It's just like he is just not good. This team is not good, and there were some high expectations on them.
Yeah, another weird result. The last one I'll say is Oregon State lost at Nevada. Nevada threw for Nevada threw for 69 yards. Oregon State lost. They get 42 points at Nevada. Wild from Oregon State, a team that thought would have been a bit more competent, but it is what it is, I suppose. Javon McCoy threw 4 interceptions. Terrible day to be an Idaho guy because Idaho got destroyed by Montana State on national television.
This is when I sit back and I'm like, see, this is why the Liam like Blutman brain is so different. Cause like, the majority of college football fans, we're watching the Red River shootout and, you've got eyes on all games and like, he's paying attention to Idaho. Like, that's just.
Well, I did bet Nevada. So
yeah. Oh, for sure.
A good bet.
I did bet Nevada plus 3.5. So that was that one. That's the other thing too. I couldn't even enjoy it. I went 18-5. I went 18-5-2.
What? I had an
incredible gambling day, like insane. Like I could 18-5-2, Liam, 18-5-2, and I couldn't even enjoy it. Pocket full of money, couldn't even enjoy it. Just sad.
I feel bad. 18-5-2. Oof.
I dominated college football on Saturday.
And it was like when you were saying that on Saturday night on the recap episode, like you even were like almost frowning when you were saying it. And it's like all Ohio State had to do was just like. They had to win, obviously, but like the way they lost, like the fact that you had 18 wins that day and you can't, like that tells you how much you love Ohio State.
Couldn't enjoy it. Just sad. Just sad.
Not.
Oh, just bad. They better win the Big Ten. That's all I'm saying. Because I'm cracking skulls if they don't. And Ryan Day's the first one.
I don't want this to happen because I want to see you happy. You're a good friend of mine. But also like seeing you go on like an anti-Ryan Day like brigade would be very funny.
And I mean, and you get to this weird spot now where like I have friends in the program, people higher up, and like I don't want to do that. I like it could like burn bridges to do that, but I will call it as I see it. If he does not win the Big Ten with this roster, that is and the fact that he hasn't done it the last 3, it'd be 4 years in a row that didn't win the Big Ten with the most talent in the conference. That's an indictment on him and him alone.
Well, especially when, you look at the fact that, like, I mean, in Michigan is just not good this year. You lose Jim Harbaugh, you lose JJ McCarthy, you lose Blake Corum. Like, it's not even like it was like, okay, they have to go out and beat the team they've been losing to for the past few years. Like, that's not even a team. I mean, I understand it's always a rivalry game, just like we tried to say with Oklahoma and Texas. Like, those games are always weird, but like, this was their conference. Like, I mean, this they have everything in front of them.
Kayce, I'll say this. If they lose to Michigan with this team and that team,
oh no.
I want him like he's not allowed like fired on the field. Like if he loses that game, he's not even allowed back in the locker room when the clock hits 0 if he loses that game.
I've been having the same thoughts, but it's not losing. It's just how they show up in the first quarter. I want to see how they show up pregame, because that issue with them since Urban departed and Day stepped in was it felt like there was such a change on both sides in the rivalry where Michigan really hadn't cared about that much or as much as Ohio State did, and complete 180. And now they're in a spot where under Ryan Day, it's like Ohio State doesn't care about the rivalry as much as Michigan does. And this is everything for Michigan, even in the national champ winning season. Like that was everything. And Ohio State wasn't replicating that. And the whole dance party stuff before the game and this and that and all the hoopla that Day was throwing around, the softness. Like if you go out there again and mess around with them even a little bit, I mean, seek help, dog. You're going to need a new job.
Yeah, he's gonna have to go coach like quarterbacks in the NFL or something if this don't work out.
Yeah, I just don't like the guy straight up either. So it is what it is.
Seek help,
I don't
dog.
think he's a good fella. I don't think he's a good guy.
He's got something weird about him, but I don't know if it's just because he dyes his beard or not.
I don't think he's a bad person. I just think he just is a choke artist in big games. I don't think he's a bad human.
Well, he also just he's just whiny. He's just a whiny guy, Ev.
No, I mean it looks bad when you. Yeah, no, it definitely like it doesn't when you just lose every big game you're in. Besides, and it's crazy. He hasn't really won a close big game. The big games that he's won are early on. It was the first season he was the head coach. They won the Big Ten, and then but even that, it wasn't like the Big Ten championship was always kind of like an easy game.
Yep.
With now it won't be obviously this year without the divisions, and then he smashed Clemson in the playoff game, so it wasn't really a close game, which they kind of like murdered Clemson really until this season. Mm-hmm. But I mean, those are the only big games he's really won.
I mean, Notre Dame last year.
But even then, they weren't even that good. They really weren't even that good.
It was the one, like, it was essentially every big game that he's coached, except this time the ball rolled their way a little bit in the end.
Yeah.
It was still as if they put up a losing effort. And then Penn State, JTT saved it. JTT was unbelievable.
Yeah. Well, he just has Penn State's number. That's the game he's like. He was non-existent in this Oregon game. I think he got hurt. I think he hurt his ankle because they had the one ankle tape pretty thick, like during the game. But yeah, I mean, he like somehow against Penn State, he just like owns like Olu Fashanu.
This is a fair point too. Is Ohio State has like a mental edge over Penn State. They don't have that over Oregon at all. No. Like Oregon doesn't have that history where I know they lost, pretty big game to them, but they don't have that history where they're going to playing Ohio State every year and getting beat up and whatever, where, a team like Penn State has, and they have to overcome that mental hurdle and everything and all those emotions. Oregon doesn't have that. Oregon beat them on the road a few years ago, and they beat them now at home. Like
we beat them we lost them in Oregon. That was a few years ago. I was in Ann Arbor, but that was CJ Stroud's like second start.
Yeah, it was in Columbus. Was it not? I thought that was in Columbus.
Let me double check. I could have sworn. Regardless, it blew.
I mean, well, and also like to that.
It was in Columbus.
You're right. Fuck. Even worse. Yuck.
Yeah, even worse.
Yeah, you lost to Anthony Brown.
But that is like to even more like the Dan Lanning thing is like, Dan Lanning hadn't really won something huge yet. However, like he's not like the mental block that like maybe whether James Franklin admits it or not, he clearly has a block of some sort beating Ohio State and Michigan because like that's what's kept them out of like taking that next step. Like Oregon coming in with the talent they had, it's like they don't give a shit. Like Dan Lanning clearly didn't give a shit. He just completely outcoached him. And I personally like love all the different things he was trying. Like I think it's awesome to see the onside kick like that. Obviously, Ev, you don't, but like 12 men on the field, all the things we've already talked about, Dan Lanning didn't give a shit. So
it was the first big game he's ever won.
yeah,
Dan Lanning had crumbled in every big game besides that one. Besides,
he just like threw his nuts on the table. He was like, I don't give a fuck that this is Ohio State.
That's why I would never quit Dan Lanning, because even though he was losing those big games, he was still aggressive and he was doing it his way, and he did not cower down once. When he was losing, he was putting his nuts on the table and he was letting them hang, and he was saying, we're going out my way, or like, I love Dan Lanning. He's great. He's an elite coach. He is, and players love him, and he's great for the sport. He truly is
a complete bro. Like the video of him with Taylor and Will with busting with the boys after the game was crazy. Like they were just a bunch of animals just like shoving the shit out of each other. It was just so prototypical Taylor and Will, but like to see Dan Lanning in that was awesome. And obviously like, rushing the field. And by the way, and Liam, I don't know how you feel. Like I put up a video, sorry, Ev, a little bit of like, oh, Ev's sad. I love when kids rush the field. And maybe it's because I'm getting older. I know I've said it on every podcast we talk about this, or every episode. Like, let them rush the field. Who cares? And then you see the way that Dan Lanning is acting, like while the field rush is happening, you see the students and the players. Like, that's the emotion that makes college football different. And to see a guy like Dan Lanning, like, he's like shaking Ryan Day's hand and turns around and just bros out. Like, that's why this is so much more fun to me than the NFL, because like that emotion, even though Ohio State was only one ranking above them, that's how big of a game that was and how much emotion went into it.
I don't dislike rushing the field. I dislike it in spots and overusing it and taking it away from being a special moment. Like, or throw the 3-2 thing out the window or whatever for Oregon, rushing the field there. Cool, whatever. Whatever. Illinois rushed the field after beating Purdue in overtime. Like, what are we doing? Like, no, stop. And we don't need to do that. ASU shouldn't have rushed the field after being Utah either. It is what it is, though. I don't care.
It is what it is. Okay, so
I like Arizona State doing it. I agree 100% on Illinois.
Illinois thing is unbelievable.
That's disgusting. Purdue is atrocious. That's disgusting.
Purdue,
they were ranked. You're a ranked team beating Purdue in overtime.
Blew a big lead.
Are they trying to make it a thing where like, they rush the field every win like Clemson does? Is that what they're trying to do?
I truly think it's just college kids having FOMO and seeing other people do it and being like, hey, this might be our only opportunity. Let's just do it.
Yeah. I honestly, like, I don't blame that line of thought, to be honest, but I do like Purdue's awful. Purdue's awful. Let's talk about Roback. Ev, the weather in Texas was so hot, but the Roback was keeping the guys cool, keeping me cool up on the stage. I'm assuming it's going to be cooler weather in Indiana when we go to Bloomington this weekend. And both on the College Football Show and Unnecessary Roughness, we love Roback because it's comfortable. No matter what the temperature is, it's going to keep you comfortable. That's huge because you don't want like a thick sweatshirt that's going to make you too hot when it's cold. And you definitely don't want a polo or something that's thick and itchy and it's going to make you even hotter. Roback has it all. It's the best fit. It's the best quality. It's top notch. And they've also just released their game day collection. If you didn't watch the Barstool College Football Show on Saturday, Dave had a custom State Fair of Texas Roback. Like they're getting into like the nitty gritty of all these collegiate things. They've got every single logo you could possibly want. So go to roback.com right now and you get 20% off your first purchase through the end of this week with code RUGH, ROUGH on RHOBACK.com. That's 20% off all shorts, hoodies, joggers with code RUGH. And Ev, I know you're still probably hanging on to shorts weather a little bit. Those Roback shorts sure are comfortable.
I am, but I'll say today, Kayce woke up a brisk 53 degrees in New York. The sweats came out. We got the Roback joggers on. Oh,
the Roback joggers are so underrated. They're so good. I got a bunch of like bigger ones when I was pregnant that I still like wish that they were my size. I'm like, I was wearing like just the straight up dude joggers when I was pregnant. They're so comfortable, but they also have really cute dresses. I was wearing a crop top now. So girls, if you're listening, or guys, if you want to wear a crop top, you want to get it for your girls, they've got all of it at Roback. Again, that's 20% off with code RUGH. All right, let's wrap this up. So again, Brandon is out dealing with some stuff with his kids. he'll be back on Thursday, but he's usually, leading this. So I'm going to lead it, and I'm going to let Ev go first because I need Ev to have some positivity here. Ev, who is up the highest right now? Do you have anything? I know you're down bad, but you got to be happy for somebody else, right?
Yeah, it's two teams that we've talked about already that I've been high on it. I'm gonna go two for it's Iowa State and BYU. My two Big 12 horses that have been just making me look smart. I had the blinders on. I'll say Iowa State first, a big time spot where everyone, even we have Brad Powers who does really good college football stuff. We have him on Pick Central every Thursday talk college ball, and he was even chirping at me, being like, because I said I'm a big Iowa State guy. He was like, not this week. They're gonna lose. Everyone was saying they're gonna go to West Virginia and lose. They did not. They played really well. They dominated the game. And Matt Campbell is, he was kind of the guy I was buying in on before the year. Just an incredibly slept on coach. He was like the hot name. He kind of never ended up leaving. They thought he was going to go to Michigan State. They thought he was going to go maybe even Michigan. They thought when Harbaugh was on the hot seat before he kind of obviously turned it around, was going to take a big Big Ten job. Stayed there. And this team looks really, really, really good. Has a real chance to win the Big 12. And I'll go to BYU. Another one where a few spots where people thought they're going to lose. Defense is really good. BYU, Retzlaff, we already talked about him. He's incredible. BYU and Iowa State are way, way, way up. I think one of them is going to win the Big 12 and be in the playoff.
Liam?
For me, Dan Lanning, I would say, but we talked about him so much, so why even bother going on it again? Ashton Genty and just Heisman. He is plus 170 on DraftKings to win the Heisman right now. He was, I think, plus 260 before the Hawaii game. Some luck goes his way, unfortunately, with Travis Hunter going down, which I hate that happens. But for Genty, he's the clear-cut favorite to win the Heisman right now. And he plays at Boise State, and it's an unbelievable story in college football.
It really is. And I know that obviously we watch him play and the internet is paying attention. I would love to see them sneak into the playoffs or not even sneak in, just make the playoffs so he can go and out and play an LSU, a Georgia, Ohio State, whoever it may be. Cause that would just be electric. He's playing talent that's so much less. It doesn't take away from what he's doing, but I would love to see that man on a field with a power 4 team. I know we talked about the Texas OU game a little bit and obviously talked a ton about it on Saturday, but Quinn Ewers didn't play phenomenally the entire game. He only had 199 yards. He had one touchdown, that one god-awful interception, but I'm going to say he won the week and Texas as a whole. I mean, listen, Oklahoma is god-awful, but Quinn had a terrible start. I mean, he had knocked the rust off. It just did not look good. He looked, just bad. And that's fine because he hadn't played in 3 or 4 games. But to come back and to bounce back the way that they did and beat Oklahoma, who, by the way, I'm not going to say that they're down the worst. So I'm going to put a different team there. But Oklahoma sucks. Brent Venables sucks. Their entire situation right now. Meanwhile, Texas is the number 1 team in the country. For them to go into that rivalry game, and I know it's not always close. We've seen some blowouts in the recent years. But Texas going into that and just beating the shit out of them from the very beginning with a quarterback who's rusty, and then knowing that he got right back on track. Again, you have Arch Manning backing him up if for some reason Quinn goes back down. Just that entire performance, Sark getting that win, Texas and Quinn Ewers are absolutely up the highest. And we saw Oregon beat Ohio State, and both of those teams are good. Texas needs to play somebody of a super high caliber, and they will coming up pretty quickly. But Texas is just cruising along at that number 1 spot right now. So I have them up the highest. Before we do down bad, where you're never down bad, Ev, Liam, when you're eating pork rinds, you're never down bad. And if Brandon was here right now, he would no doubt be snacking because that man is always snacking. But they're also doing this cool thing that we shot a little thing for last week. They're finding a crunch time hero every single week. Fans get to vote on it. And then they're the crunch time hero. We love pork rinds because of how delicious they are. They're healthy, less than 1 carb per serving. Lots of protein, but they're also ingrained into college football. And Liam, I'm going to assume if you had to pick a crunch time hero right now, you would pick Ashton Genty, no?
Yep, 100%.
Ashton Genty. So it is crunch time. Just go get them. They're tailgating, game watching, whatever you're doing. We love pork rinds. Porkrinds.com, the Southern recipe pork rinds, our favorite. Spicy dill, hot honey, sweet barbecue, the whole thing. We love pork rinds. They're our best friends. Okay, I'm going to start with Liam now. Liam, who is down the most tremendous?
I'm going to start with what Brandon would say, and then I'll do mine. Kirby Smart is down the word. I'm not doing a Brandon impersonation because I can't do that.
I was about to say, are you going to try?
He did an impersonation of me. Gross. It was not good. It was terrible. Kirby Smart is down so bad. Kirby What kind of program are you running, brother? It's a joke and it's a disgrace, and it starts at the top, and you're pushing around Michael Van Buren, the face of the Mississippi State Bulldogs. Shame on you, Kirby Smart.
There
Have
you
some
go.
self-respect. Kirby, bad dog. And then I would say me, because Saturday night, this upcoming Saturday night, Georgia and Texas play at 6:30 Central. North Dakota State, South Dakota State plays 7. It's gonna be tough to keep up with both classics.
Yeah, those are very two similar caliber games. I can understand that would be very tough
Number
for
one
you.
versus number 2.
It's fair. Okay, is it Ohio State down the most tremendous?
Yeah, probably, but I was gonna let someone else do that, but I won't.
No, I mean, I don't wanna listen, I love you, and I did a little dancing on Saturday night for the entertainment. I can't keep piling on you, brother. Like, you're the number 4 team in the nation right now. You're fine.
Well, it's that's where I was kind of what I was alluding to earlier in the show, where like they're fine in the sense like the season's not dead at all. Like they lost by 1 point on the road to the number 3 team, and they didn't play great. They're not dead, but just what I saw from the defense and just another Ryan Day blunder. It just very scary. It just doesn't make me feel confident about like getting over the hump later in the season when it really matters even more. So Ohio State's obviously really we're down tremendous, but at the same time, like everything's still. It's with that all being said, everything's still in front of us is like the craziest part about it. I was gonna say Utah. I think Utah's down really, really bad.
Yeah.
Like just horrifically bad. The favorite to win the Big 12 coming in the year, Cam Rising, and I'm a big Cam Rising guy. I had been.
I am too.
They just the favorites win the Big 12. They get smoked by Arizona, then they get smoked by Arizona State back to back. Their season's done. They're not winning the Big 12. They're not winning anything. And Whittingham, listen, I will never say a bad word about Kyle Whittingham. He still is a phenomenal football coach. They call it a year where they don't have a quarterback. They have Zach Wilson's brother's going to be playing the rest of the year. Isaiah Wilson, he stinks. They just don't have it this year. It's just unfortunately going to be a down year for Utah. But I still love Kyle Whittingham, but just Utah's down horrible. Their season's cooked and it's the middle of October.
Yeah, no, I feel the same way. I mean, I was as high on them as you were. Cam Rising just can't come back for his 8th year. I know, Liam, you mentioned it earlier. He just can't. Like, he's got to have somebody around him to be like, brother, it is time to hang it up.
He just made it glass. One thing I want to say too about it is that I think he got hurt again, like early in that game. I think his leg got hurt and he just wasn't able to. He basically wasn't able to plant off it. And he was throwing lollipops. I mean, every throw he made, I was like, I bet Utah dumbly in that game. And every throw he made, I was like this because I thought every throw was going to get picked off because it just was floating in the air forever. Just couldn't put any zip on the ball. He just has injuries he just keeps getting hurt. His body's just breaking down.
At Big 12 Media Days, he said 7 years is more than enough.
Yeah.
If he comes back next year, that would be just
8 years.
I agree with Liam. I agree with you. But throw on a headset. He's a high IQ guy when it comes to football. His body's just failing him at this point. Get in the booth, throw the headset on, coach up some offense, coach up some quartbacks.
He can't stay healthy, so why run it back for an 8th time? I don't know.
He's not going to play in the NFL, clearly.
No. I know I said Oklahoma, who's down the road, like they're definitely up there, but we already talked about this like a ton. It's Ole Miss fans. I mean, and if you really like, I've got, like, I know I've said this on the podcast, like I have friends who are Ole Miss fans that are not in this. Like, I'm not talking about like the Mincy. I'm talking about like the real diehard Ole Miss fans that like live and breathe. He is, but I'm saying he's not in they're not in content. Like they're just going to their 9 to 5s and they are down so bad because this, like when you talk about Ohio State and like what they were able to do in the transfer portal and all the talent that they were able to get, and you've got Ryan Day. I mean, Lane Kiffin and Ole Miss were right up there in that conversation. And this was the year that it was like, okay, can Lane win the big one? Can he go get all this talent? Jackson Dart, a Heisman candidate. And they just, I mean, going into the Georgia game, they thought they were going to be undefeated. And I know Georgia didn't anticipate having a loss either, but the fact that we're now sitting here on October the 15th, they have 2 losses. One, they absolutely shouldn't have. I mean, you can make the argument they shouldn't have lost either Kentucky or LSU, that it was like them losing it for themselves. But these Ole Miss fans were so high. And it goes back to now the question is, if Lane is flirting with the Florida job or if he's not flirting with the Florida job, like, what is it going to take for Lane Kiffin to get over that next hump? And that's what Ole Miss fans are trying to figure out right now because they had everything in front of them and they are not happy. They are not happy at all with the shenanigans. So I would say Ole Miss, but also Oklahoma. I mean, Oklahoma fans have to be just looking in the mirror like, Ev, did you notice? And I mean, obviously, like they hate Lincoln Riley. The most excited that they got that entire show was when Dave talked about Michigan killing USC for them because like they hate Lincoln Riley. Like they're still like, we fucking hate Lincoln Riley. And it's like, guys, that's fine. Like you can make fun of him. Like, look at the guy you guys got. He's not doing shit either. He's actually probably doing worse because Lincoln Riley at least can roll out an offense.
I think part of it is because they know that.
Yeah.
I think part of the is they know they can't, like they knew they weren't going to win that game. They knew Texas was going to kick their ass. So the most exciting thing, it's Brandon getting excited about Ole Miss. It's the most exciting thing you can have is trashing your rival. And like their rivals now become Lincoln Riley. They just hate Lincoln Riley. So if they can't win, they will take solace in him just crapping his pants in all these close games. I mean, USC, I didn't use them again because I used them in the loser of last week. Like they had such a goal. This team had such a golden opportunity. The fact that they lost the 3 games they've lost, they should have won all of them.
Yeah, for sure.
They should be 6-0. They should have won.
I think I still think that they're a really good team. I just think that they're so poorly coached. It's unbelievable.
I was like talking to one of my friends who's a USC fan, and I was like, how do you feel? And he was like, I still somehow want to believe that he can get it done, but like at this point, how can I? And then he pointed out, which I didn't even put this together, that I think the new athletic director didn't hire Lincoln Riley. So like unless I'm like getting my timeline wrong, like Lincoln Riley's hot seat, depending on how they finish out the season, I don't think they're going to go out and fire him. But like to go and spend all that money to get him, and obviously he brought Caleb Williams, and like just all the hype that they had, the change defensive coordinator is just a mess. There's a lot of teams that are down really bad. So we can definitely say that. We'll be back later this week. We've got, obviously, we mentioned Texas, Georgia. We've got Michigan, Illinois. We're going to be
Bama, Tennessee.
Tennessee. We'll be at Nebraska, Indiana also. And Brandon's not here. It is Texas A&M, Mississippi State. I'm just saying. So both of you know, and this is people that have listened to this podcast for the last 6 years that we've done this. This is our witching week. Okay. Weird shit always happens the week after. That's when Brandon shoves Devlin in the Yell Eater costume. The next year is when he and I got in the biggest fight we've ever gotten, and to the point where, Liam, I don't even know if you know this story. We got in such a big fight that they buried the footage. Dave wouldn't let the footage out because it got so ugly. Now they ended up putting some of it in like the final Christmas video. Like we weren't sure we were ever going to speak to each other again. Then the next year there was like there's a lot that happened. So I'm just warning everybody. I don't think it's going to be that way because he knows how bad Mississippi State is. But this is our witching week for this podcast.
I'm looking forward to it.
You don't want him on. Where's the game, Kayce?
The game is at Mississippi State.
That'd be one of those, like, they're playing spoiler for you. That's I
know.
A&M's back. Like, they got a lot in front of them. They got a lot going for them now. They're back. Like, they have a chance.
I love it.
Fuck this one up.
Yeah, everybody gig him. Yeah. So we'll be back later this week. Oh, there it goes. Brandon will be back. Thanks. This was the Unnecessary Roughness Liam Blutman review minute. We hope you enjoyed. We'll see you guys next time.